In higher ed, we're all looking for big wins, but reducing a 75% application abandonment rate and achieving a 90% conversion rate, that's next level transformation. Michael Bettersworth, CMO at Texas State Technical College, shares how they achieved this by streamlining the application process with Element 451.
Our Element journey began out of a necessity. We were switching to a new SIS, and the application process was going to pose some real usability issues for us. We felt that application was going to hamper our enrollment. So we began quickly to evaluate different CRMs, different applications. So for context on that, our conversion rate with the prior application had about 75% abandonment of people clicking apply to submit. And the first weeks after going live with Element, we saw an 80% conversion, and that's now up to 90. So improving the usability of that application on the front end process has had a significant advance in our intake.
When technology works for students, it works for you. Visit element451.com to see how simplifying the application process with artificial intelligence will lead to significant results for your institution. Welcome to AI for You. Today's use case is all about using AI for planning your ideal career. In episode 9, I first talked about the JobsGPT from SmarterX AI. This custom GPT will let you enter your job title or ideally your job description, and it will break down the tasks you do in your role and tell you how much time AI could save in each one of those tasks. And then you can ask it questions about the types of AI tools you could use for each task and even how to implement them. Well, they recently updated this custom GPT, so now you can even ask the tool to predict what jobs you might be best suited for in the future based on the emerging technology landscape. Today's prompt is all about planning for your ideal career. You basically enter your current job title and description, ideally, into the tool, along with the job you're interested in and the description if possible. And then you ask ChatGPT to help you figure out what skills and experiences will make you the most qualified for this job. Now, you can run this prompt right within the JobsGPT to help you plan to pursue one of the career paths that they outline as a possible future role. You can find the link to the JobsGPT and the career planning prompt in the show notes. Today, I'm talking with Michelle Tarby about some practical ways to start using AI right now in higher ed marketing. Michelle's the Senior Director of Digital Engagement at Lemoyne College. Let's jump right in. Welcome to AI for You, the go-to podcast for higher ed professionals looking to integrate AI into their daily work. I'm your host, Brian Piper, the Director of Content Strategy and Assessment at the University of Rochester. Join me every other Thursday for practical uses of AI within higher education communications, marketing, and student engagement. We'll focus on ways to quickly integrate AI into your teams to increase your efficiency and effectiveness and help you optimize your workflows and processes. I'll interview experts and feature relevant use cases with the goal that every episode gives you at least one thing you can take away and start leveraging in your job today. AI for You is a part of the Enrollify Network, a robust collection of podcasts designed to help higher education professionals like you grow. Explore our other shows at enrollify.org. Enrollify is made possible by Element 451, the next generation AI student engagement platform helping institutions create meaningful and personalized interactions with students. Learn more at element451.com. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show, Michelle.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Absolutely. So tell me a little bit about how you're using AI at Lemoyne.
One of the things I'm doing right now is, we have a ton of webinar content that our alumni office puts on. We record a lot of things for incoming students for viewing during the summertime. And one of the things I've always wanted to do is take this content and do something more meaningful with it. So I've been downloading some transcripts and trying to come up with, maybe a series of blog posts or, summarizing, like we just did one on alumni authors and we had 4 alumni authors. It came out, tips for getting involved in writing and how to pick a publisher and, what path to go down and what tools are available to help you. The same thing with our incoming students. And I found with the incoming students, especially, it's a lot easier to go to an office with something like this in your hand and say, hey, I pulled this from what you did last summer. It's great advice for incoming students. What do you think? And I met with a faculty member and the blog post ended up being 10 things faculty members wish you knew before you started classes. And he was reading through it. He looks at me and said, you know what? I know these are my words, but this is so much better than I sounded. So now we have this whole library of advice content that we'll be able to use, to ease students' fears as they start transitioning to college. So it's really helpful.
Oh, that's fantastic. I love the idea of taking that original content that you have, that very human generated content, and figuring out how to repurpose it or turn it into something that's like specifically useful for that target audience. That's great.
That's it, because no one's going to sit through a recording of a 2-hour webinar when there's maybe one piece of information in there that's going to be super helpful to them and what they need.
Right. And for us to spend our time going through that whole 2-hour webinar, trying to figure out what that is.
Absolutely. I can't tell you how many times I've tried to start this project. I'm like, nope, I can't plow through all this transcript. I just can't do it.
Yeah. AI is great at looking through large amounts of data, of content, of anything that we don't have the time to consume. And it can just like pick out key elements. So it's great.
Yeah. And that's super exciting to see how we can grow this and continue it.
Yeah, absolutely. So talk a little bit about your AI journey. How did you get started using AI? And was it an easy process or were you resistant or how'd that work out for you?
Well, it's funny. I always thought I was like an early adopter, right? I was like, I use ChatGPT. Someone gives me content that they want to have about their research that they want to make a LinkedIn post. I'll run it through ChatGPT. I'll get like some very good, a basis to start from at least. But then when I went to Digital Collegium in the fall and started, I attended your presentation and listening to Paul Reitzer and Mallory. And it's like, okay, I'm not doing anything. So one of the things I came back from the conference wanting to do is actually do work with personas, because we had, these journey maps that when we did our website redesign, the firm worked with us on. So I had that whole undergraduate perspective journey. We had their creative brief that was become basically our content Bible for the whole site. Higher ed, we have all kinds of data, right? So I have iPads data, I've got our common data sets, I've got all this stuff from institutional research. So I started putting that all in and saying, all right, tell me what an ideal student at Lemoyne would look like. So I ended up with 3 and, I'm sitting there going, these are really good. And so I showed my interns like, yeah, these are really good. But I'm like, all right, are they really good from an enrollment perspective? So I shared them with, some of our enrollment folks, including our VP of enrollment management. They're like, this is spot on. These are exactly the students that succeed at Lemoyne. So then we started doing the fun part. So now it's like, okay, so I've got these 3 students. What kind of content helps answer their questions, their motivations? What's going to really speak to them? And once I had that list of ideas, I sat down with my interns. I'm like, all right, let's come up with some ideas of what content can we create to answer these things. And I have to tell you, they were incredibly distracted because each persona has a headshot. They were so taken with the headshots. Like, okay, yes, Riley, Alex, and Emma are all very cute, but let's think about what they need. So that's really been the focus of our content for the end of last year and going into this year. How do we show students they're going to be supported? How do we show them they're ready academically? And if they're feeling not ready academically, what do we have to show them that they will get the help they need? It's gone really well so far. Our engagement has been up on our channels. Our blog post traffic has been up. So, we're super happy and I can't wait to see where it goes next. So we're kind of doing like each stage of the journey, like each month, we're like, okay, so now here they are in the process. What do they need?
That's so great. And just talking with you about the different stages and the different places that the personas are at. I mean, because we use our personas all the time to like bounce ideas off of them or say, what are we missing in here? Or what other questions could we ask or answer that would help you? But I love the idea of putting them in a place in their journey. Like you were just accepted, but you're not sure if you want to go. So put them in that like yield phase, or push them down the road into the melt phase. And like, you've been accepted, you want to go, but are you going to put down your deposit? What's stopping you? What's holding you back? It doesn't replace asking real students that, but it's so easy and quick and you can just go out and leverage them immediately.
And it's improved the content that we typically do. Like, obviously, we've got, why do you want to come to Lemoyne? Here's several reasons why. But to really speak to what's on their mind, I think has been a great move for us. So,
yeah. And we always talk about, audience first and audience focused, but it's really hard to do, like to go out and grab a student or put together a focus group. And when you have the tool right there, on your desk that can get you, 60, 70, 80% of the way there.
much closer than we've ever been. So,
Right. That's what I always tell people is you don't want to hear from some 50-year-old guy why you should come to our school.
Exactly.
So this helps you get in the mind of that student a little better. That's great.
Right. And to give my students the direction to tell the stories that are going to resonate, because they don't necessarily think about what was concerning them back at the time, back when they were deciding, but if I get them back in that mindset, I'm like, okay.
Yeah, for sure. And I love having your students working with the models so that way they can like adjust them or tell you if like this doesn't really sound authentic or right, and you can go and tweak those. We actually even tried to get our personas to use some like language, and that didn't work out very well. But we were trying to figure out how to get them to be more authentic. And so yeah.
The one thing that we discovered does not work well, at least for us, is any kind of generative AI images. Usually before break, we'll do like a quick little Canva design saying, "Oh, have a safe break." So I'm like, "Oh, I'm going to do this in AI." So I had, this iconic picture of our, clock on campus and have a great break, and posted it, and people went nuts. They were so upset. Give us the real clock. Don't put anything on. Okay. All right.
Right.
So,
yeah.
It's like anything. It's experimenting.
For sure.
What's going to work? What's not going to work?
Yeah. And we've used some AI images like in articles about AI, but we always say like these were AI generated. So, we're not trying to trick them or anything like that. But yeah, they don't like when you're creating using AI, when you're replacing a photographer or a videographer. But yeah, certainly to augment. So that's very, very important to know. What do you see as some of the biggest challenges in higher ed for integrating AI into our processes?
From what I'm seeing now, at least the people I talk to, is not having a good reason or problem they're trying to solve. I was talking to somebody not very recently, and they're like, I need an AI tool. That's great. What is your plan for it? What problem are you trying to solve? Well, I don't have one, but I feel I need an AI tool because everyone's got AI tools. I think the other one I think is a challenge is not taking the time to properly set the environment. Like you can sit down, ask ChatGPT, hey, what are the 10 things that are on a college student's mind? And it'll tell you. But until you start giving it that context and how you can affect that. And I think, for me at least, the other challenge, which I'm sure applies to small shops across higher ed, is trying to do all the things. Because there's so many exciting things you can do. It's, stopping yourself, backing up, and just picking the things that bring the most value.
Yeah. Yeah. These tools can do so many things. It's easy sometimes to get, pushed down a rabbit hole of just all the cool things it can do that don't necessarily help you with your job.
Exactly. Is it going to bring me value? No, but it's really fun to play with.
Yeah, for sure. AI powered and people focused. This is the future of higher ed. Join us in Charlotte, June 24th and 25th for the 2025 Engage Summit. Learn how AI transforms student engagement by blending scalability with authenticity. Enrollify listeners get $50 off with registration code Enrollify50. Register now at engage.element451.com. We talk all the time about institutions that haven't started doing anything with AI or people that aren't doing anything with AI. What advice do you have for them to get started?
Well, the first one's kind of aspirational. We have a young alum who does a podcast that's really great. Talks a lot about, being true to yourself and finding your way. And I was listening to an episode on my way into the office the other day. The one thing he said was, shift your mindset from a place of comparison to a space of admiration. It's really hard to look at like all the other things that other colleges are doing and think, I'll never get there. I can't do that. But instead thinking, that's really cool. I wonder if I could adapt it to do this or answer this problem. From a more practical standpoint, I think it's taking the time to learn how to create really valuable prompts. giving the information that will support ChatGPT and the answers it gives you, and be willing to refine. The one great thing is it doesn't get mad at you if you say, no, that doesn't sound like me. No, that's not the direction I want to go. This content's not going to work. It's not going to be like, well, fine, I'm not helping you anymore. So I think just keeping that in mind, it's not like talking to a colleague that may give you pushback. It's trying to make itself better for you.
It's a mind shift change from the way that we're used to working with people. I mean, they say that, use the tools like a collaborator, but when you collaborate with people, you have to be very mindful of personalities and egos and interactions. Not so much with AI, but you have to give it direction. You have to give it context and data. Right. And you're not going to get quality output if you don't give it enough information.
Right.
And
one of
the
my colleagues refers to as garbage in, garbage out.
That's right. That's right. And a lot of times I like to ask the tool, like, what other information do you need that will be helpful? And it will tell you.
Yeah.
So what are some of the most interesting use cases of AI that you've seen or heard about in higher ed?
Anything for me that makes me work better or smarter. Like you had a prompt in the show notes. I think I reached out to you about it, about social media content strategy. So I took that and I said, well, you know what? I wonder if I could use that with my personas to come up with just a little content calendar and try it for a month. And it's been phenomenal because it's general enough that you can find things that fit. So it's not like you have to post this exact piece of content on this day. So just thinking about those kind of things. Somebody had a prompt not too long ago about batching the work that you do and, talking about what you do in a typical week and how you like to work and when your most productive times are, if you're more of a morning person or an afternoon person. And it kind of set you up with a week plan for, these are the types of things you should be doing on this day. And I just absolutely love it. Anything that, as I said, kind of keep me organized.
Right.
Yeah. And as I said, I've got a lot of really great ideas just from some of the guests you've had on your show, especially around SEO.
Yeah.
And working smarter with that.
So great at helping with that and taking so many of the tasks that, you have to do a lot of data analysis to figure out where your opportunities are. And we just have too much data to look at sometimes. And
we do. Yeah. I've got like this dashboard report that I share out each month and it's great. It's got all the numbers and how these campaigns are doing, social media performance and website performance. But I've never had the time to kind of sit down and say, okay, let's get a high level summary of how we're doing. Are the paid campaigns working? What's driving traffic to the site? Where is it coming from? Are we hitting the markets we're trying to get into? But now I can take that data and say, hey, can you look at this? And just give me an executive summary. And it's been a game changer. Everyone's like, oh, I love the summaries. How do you do that?
Yep, for sure. Sometimes I'll even take I'll do a screenshot of a dashboard. I'll throw it in the Notebook LM and generate a podcast talking about it. And it'll just give you a different perspective on, what the numbers are showing.
Yeah.
So, we know that higher ed institutions are going to have to adopt as a result of AI. What can higher ed professionals and admissions, advancement, marketing people start doing now to prepare for that future?
I think the biggest thing is just kind of learning as much as you can. Take in podcasts, watch webinars, go to conferences, just to kind of not only see what's out there, but see how things are evolving and figure out really how it can impact what you do. And then the other thing is, I think, thinking about those tasks that can be automated, incorporating that into your workflow. It's an easy place to start too. And it saves your time that you can get onto the bigger pictures. I preach that all the time. If you can move this off your plate, you'll be able to do this and have more time to do this, or, talk to students or, interview faculty members or whatever the case may be. But the big thing also, I think, is verifying outputs. The machines aren't perfect. And sometimes you get something and it's like, where on earth from what I gave you did that come from? I think you have to be very careful so you just don't fall into the trap of, okay, well, it said it, so this is true and I'm going to use it.
Right. Yeah. So important to have our expertise at the final end of that process to be able to validate and verify and make sure that what it's giving us is strategically important or relevant to our audiences, because it just doesn't know that. So we need to be able to step in and say that.
I think we need also to be able to have good editing and writing skills too. I know a lot of times I ask for ideation and it'll give me like a sample post and it sounds nothing like us. It has that tone. It's very flowery and, uses adjectives that never would I use in conversation. So just making sure those skills are spot on as well.
Yeah, we have a brand voice generator style guide. So you can put a draft article in there and it'll go through and it'll make style guide recommendations and brand voice recommendations. And you have to be able to look at those and say, nope, this is not good. Oh, okay. Yeah, I see. We should be using that, reference to the university there or something.
Exactly.
So,
yeah.
Where do you see generative AI going in the next year or two?
I think that the proliferation of tools is going to make it harder to find the right things that add value. I was talking to a friend of mine who was in higher ed for a long time, but has since left and started their own agency, that they're already seeing every RFP they get is asking for some kind of AI integration. And they are just some bad ones out there. They
Sure.
promise you the world and you start using them and it's like, oof. Or they take the load time of your website and cut it in half because it's such a drag on everything else.
Yeah. And, some of the problems with these tools is, first of all, you don't know what they're really doing with your data that you're giving them. Or if they get bought or go out of business, what is going to happen to all that data and all that information they've been collecting? So is that going to be used to train a different model? So, yeah.
So we always tell people, you got to make sure our information security folks are involved in any kind of conversation before. Like, I'm just going to buy this tool. No, don't do that. Don't do that. Talk to them first because they're going to have a list of questions. They're going to want to talk to the vendor and get the answers around privacy and what they're going to do with the data.
Yeah, absolutely. For sure. One of the last questions I always ask people is, how are you using the tools in your job in ways that are helping you out the most?
It's funny you asked that because I have one from just the other day. I needed a new URL shortener for a social media post. I was like, all right, I want something branded and, I don't necessarily I want to see if maybe we can do it without having to, drag IT in and, do all this DNS stuff. So I asked JobsGPT, I said, hey, you know what? Knowing what you know about me, here's what I need. I need a URL shortener. It's going to work with our, social media content. I could have done the same thing in Google, but I would have had to plow through, all these pages of search results, go on these different websites, figure out if it was going to work for me or not. But as I kept talking to ChatGPT, it was like, okay. And I said, well, what do you want? What else is important to you? And here's a couple things. Let's compare them side by side. What do you think? It's like, this is amazing. This is absolutely amazing. I said, what else would be helpful to know? And ChatGPT said, well, what CMS platform are you using? So I said, we're using WordPress, and said, well, do you have this plugin? Yep. Do you have this plugin? Yes. How do you currently track this? I said, it's on a Google Sheet. So it wrote me a plan. I haven't done it yet, but I'm looking forward to doing it, that uses the tools we have, the data I already maintain, to do a custom URL shortener right within WordPress. That was probably 30 minutes of back and forth, where if I would have sat down in front of Google and started looking at things and reviewing things, it would have been like half an afternoon, at least easily an afternoon.
Right.
I'm just going down these different rabbit holes. I'm like, no, that's not going to do it.
Right. And going through all the sponsored ads and figuring out which ones were just trying to sell you their shortener or
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Michelle, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing your insights. If people want to get in touch with you, follow you, find out more, where can they go to do that?
LinkedIn is the best spot. Absolutely. So yeah, happy to connect on LinkedIn. Happy to chat on LinkedIn.
Fantastic. Well, thanks again for coming on the show. Great talking with you.
Thank you, Brian.
Michelle's practical approach to AI implementation offers insights for any higher ed marketer. I really appreciated her focus on solving specific problems rather than just adopting AI because everyone else is doing it. Her success with student personas demonstrates how AI can help us better understand and connect with our audiences in authentic ways. What stands out most is how Michelle is using AI to extend the value of existing content and data. By transforming webinar recordings into targeted blog posts and using institutional data to create accurate student personas, she's found ways to make AI work for her team's specific needs without requiring additional resources. Her advice to verify outputs and maintain strong writing and editing skills reminds us that AI is a complement to, not a replacement for, human expertise. As Michelle's URL shortener story illustrates, the real power of these tools comes from their ability to save us time on research and planning so we can focus on strategic work that drives results. Please reach out to me with unique ways that you're integrating AI into your professional and personal lives. And as always, blue skies and keep creating. Thank you for listening to another episode of AI for You. I hope you found at least one useful thing you can take away and start adding to your workflows and processes today. Remember, the key to making the most of AI is to keep experimenting, keep learning, and of course, keep creating. AI for You is a part of the Enrollify podcast network. If you like this podcast, chances are you'll like other Enrollify shows too. Our podcast network is growing by the month, and we've got a plethora of marketing, enrollment, and higher ed technology shows that are jam-packed with stories, ideas, and frameworks, all designed to empower you to become a better higher ed professional. Our shows help higher ed professionals find their next big idea and feature a selection of the industry's best as your hosts. Learn from Artis Kadu, Day Kibbles, Shane Baglini, and so many other of your favorite leaders in higher ed. Enrollify is made possible by Element 451, the next generation AI student engagement platform, helping institutions create meaningful and personalized interactions with students. Learn more at element451.com.